It is Weather Wagers. And
Week
are we
5.
having fun?
We are.
What a great weekend of football. I am still hyped up. I got the energy because Penn State, Philadelphia Eagles, my two main teams that I follow on Saturdays and Sundays, they have both found life. They have both found offense. And two of the easier wins that we've seen maybe in the last 4 or 5 years for both teams.
I don't know what to say about that. You and I should have made a side wager on the Vikings-Eagles game because I didn't believe it.
I did.
And I said, I for some of these teams, I'm still in wait-and-see mode. I need them to prove it to me. Well, guess what? A lot of them proved it to me this weekend, and they did it in grand fashion. So first things first, let's review the picks from last week because we want to take off here. Brett Thacker, Dan Tomaso with you. And actually, Dan, before we get into this briefly, why don't you tell folks again where they can find us, where they can watch us, and where they can listen, just as a reminder.
Sure. So we are on all platforms that you can find podcasts, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Amazon, and Google. Google's the other one.
Google.
We are everywhere. Anchor, also, if you use Anchor, it is posted there as well. So you can find us there if you want just the audio version. Now, the video, where you can see our two mugs.
Yeah, and the weather graphics that we show to help predict some of these games. That's on YouTube. You just go to ABC 27 News, the YouTube channel there, and it's posted. And it's got the video to go along with the audio. So we're everywhere.
And then our notes, our Bible, right here.
Yeah. That column is posted.
It's all here. It gets posted on abc27.com. So all that is up and available when we hop off of here. So we got a lot going on, Brett. But I'll tell you what, it is a fun time of the year. We're starting to figure out what teams are like, whether it's college, the NFL. I don't have a great feel for the NFL yet, as you'll see in some of my picks. But good football all the way around. No, it is.
I'll tell you what. So we both lost the Chiefs game last Thursday night. That was Amazon's big debut. I thought they did a nice job with the broadcast.
I agree. It feels big time.
Yeah.
And I love hearing Al. It really warms my soul to hear him calling a football game.
Yeah, I think Al liked the Chargers to cover because he got very excited on that late touchdown pass from Herbert into the end zone. Yes! And it didn't matter at that point.
Al might have a stake in the game or two. We don't know.
It's always fun to imagine that. But the Herb Street in the booth, too, Kaylee Hartung on the sideline, a great crew they've assembled. And with Fred Godelli producing this, it did. It felt big time.
It did.
They've got Pittsburgh and Cleveland this week.
Now, I do want to say real quick, it does seem like there were some hiccups for people with Amazon Prime, and maybe you're one of them. Depending on how you get the feed, whether it's on your phone or your tablet or your television, maybe they don't have all the bugs worked out. I don't know if we've seen the numbers yet on how that broadcast did, but for us as broadcasters, this is a very interesting development that streaming is becoming so large with these live sporting events.
It is. We haven't seen the numbers yet, but the Amazon says they did great. But that's Amazon saying that. We need to see the Nielsen numbers. So that's going to be something to watch. Penn State, we both like to cover that spread, and
How
I'll
about
tell you
that
what,
spread?
They did it.
They did it in a big way.
We're going to get into that here in our review section. Michigan State, that was your pick to win the Big Ten. I don't know if they could have looked worse.
They looked bad, and I will say Vegas knew something was up to take them to begin with. I just don't know if anyone saw Washington starting undefeated and looking this sharp.
Yeah.
Pac-12 all of a sudden has some fun teams to follow, whether it's Washington, whether it's USC, Oregon. We'll get to that in a moment. Oregon State.
Yeah.
Where's this talent coming from out west?
Yeah. I went 4-5. You went 5-4. Again, you're nudging yourself ahead of me a bit. And the Bears, I thought they were going to show up on Sunday night. I realized, listen, I realized I took a chance there, but they were the Bears.
They look like the Bears.
They look like the Bears. Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers. And then, I picked against the team that I root for, but I try to be not biased. This is one of those situations. The Vikings look solid. I'm like, can the Eagles really continue to dominate in the run game? And I got to tell you, Dan, we talked about this. I was watching the game, and by the second quarter, I felt kind of like the Penn State game. I felt like, okay, I'm comfortable here.
When a team's in control.
Yeah. And they just looked like they could do anything at will. And I thought, okay, I'm going to lose this to Dano. But, boy, oh boy, Jalen Hurts put the ball wherever he wanted. The lines looked like they were just doing whatever they wanted. And the Vikings seem like a solid team. Again, we're still trying to figure that out.
And they had their opportunities, but the defense really clamped down when they needed to.
How enjoyable was it to watch a game knowing that the team was in control?
Well, for Penn State, I'm not used to it. So that's one thing. Eagles at least have had some of those games under Doug Peterson,
Yeah.
even a little bit under Nick Sirianni. But the difference with both teams is the ability to run the ball, the ability to stay unpredictable, and some of that is the RPO offense because all of a sudden you have the defense collapsing toward the quarterback, and then all of a sudden there's a guy in the flat. All of a sudden there's a guy streaking down the
And
field.
Hurts found him.
Yeah.
That was fun to watch. Syracuse and Purdue, we split that one. And that game,
boy.
We were posting about it during the game. How much fun was that? Because that came down to the last minute.
And you know what? As much as we love Jeff Brom, shame on Jeff Brom.
Twice this season.
His penalty
Yeah.
was a critical, poor job. Poor job coaching on Jeff Brom. Let his kids down. His mouth gave them good field position for Syracuse to claim victory in the end.
Well, my mouth was running too because I liked it because I won. I got this money line pick with Syracuse. Nevada at Iowa. Boy, did I hit that one. I knew it. And Nevada looks horrible. They may just a little tease. Nevada may show up again in my best bets segment.
You like this team, or don't like them, I guess you could say.
I think they're one of the worst teams in college football. That game, by the way, and this is where we need to make a note. The Iowa game at Kinnick Stadium was delayed 3 times because of lightning. Mm-hmm. Again, if you were following us on Twitter, we should tell people our Twitter handles, too.
Yeah, I'm at Doppler Dan, and you can find me there on Instagram as well. Same handle, so you can follow me on all platforms.
The same handle, too. You can find both of us on Facebook, meteorologist Brett Thacker, meteorologist Dan Tomaso.
Yep.
I'm at Brett Thack ABC27 on Twitter and Instagram as well. But on Twitter, I was posting about this game. The radar was lit up.
I know.
And 3 different times. The game did not end until just before 3 a.m.
And just remember, too, it can rain during a football game. It's the lightning that's the problem.
Yes, and we saw that again with the Bears game last week. It rained, it poured. The game still went on. They had fun with it. But lightning delays have been a persistent issue in college football this year. The Iowa game delayed 3 times, didn't finish till before 3 o'clock. Now, imagine this. You're watching some terrible football. You're at Kinnick Stadium, House of Horrors. Mm-hmm. You are facing one of the worst teams in college football.
You're in the pink locker room all that time.
And you are not – imagine some of the beat writers not getting home till almost the next day.
Yeah, you might as well just camp there.
Having to suffer through bad football and then having to suffer through 3 delays.
It's bad all around. I don't know what's going on with that program. Usually they're, a brute force type of program, but it ain't good right now. And you mentioned the ugly football. Iowa comes back for me this week, and I'll talk about them a little bit more coming up.
Yeah, Texas A&M, I told you, sneaky game.
Yep.
They were going to come back. I don't want to say they embarrassed Miami, but they played well enough to win.
Yeah.
I thought they would.
And Miami's probably a year or so away yet.
Yep.
Let's be honest. I mean,
yeah.
Texas A&M recruited a ton of talent. Appalachian State's running this big high all of a sudden.
Yep.
Jimbo Fisher is trying to reclaim his group because let's face it, if this season doesn't go well, what is the excuse?
There isn't going to be one.
Correct. And that's his problem.
That's right. And then the Browns last week.
More bad football.
What? I mean, I had checked that game. We were out. My son, we took him and a friend to an arcade for his birthday party. And, I was keeping one eye on them, one eye on my phone. I felt pretty good that I'm going to go 3 for 3 here. And then all of a sudden, I looked at the score later, and then I heard Mike Greenberg talking about it. He's a huge Jets fan. We work with a huge Jets fan.
Yes, we do.
One of our photographers here, Justin, and he chirps about the Jets a lot, mostly negative because there isn't anything positive to say.
What do you say anymore?
But, man, I don't know what happened with the Browns.
Well, and it's similar to the Ravens. What happened to the Ravens? Total collapse.
Yeah.
And a lot of these teams in the NFL we're finding out, and this is what makes, I think, the NFL harder than college football, a lot of parity.
Sure.
And the defense, the league has really prevented defenses from playing their game.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, going back quickly to the Eagles game, the officials, their whistles are rampant this year. And it's slowing the pace of the game down. It's not making it as enjoyable. And I get, okay, you got a guy downfield or, there's a procedural problem, sure. But the defensive pass interference, the odd calls toward the end of the games, I'm tired of it. Let them play the game.
Well said. I don't even need to add anything because I would.
The Eagles game was egregious. I'm sorry. There were a couple of calls there. these guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just keep the whistle at
you
bay.
know, listen, I think there's some people that say, let's not pick on the officials. They work hard, and let them do their job and all of that. Well, listen, I don't agree with that. Sorry. We certainly want good officiating, and I think that you're right. At times, it can really slow down the game.
And defensive coordinators don't want to play up anymore on wide receivers. So a lot of these comebacks are happening because the middle of the field's wide open, or they're not bumping any wide receivers until they're 5 yards,
correct,
6, 7 yards down the
field. It's kind of like football coaches, Well, it's not always their fault. Listen, they get paid a lot of money.
They do.
Make better decisions. Same with the officials. It is a thankless job.
It is.
So is ours, by the way, as forecasters. We hear about it when we're wrong,
100%.
believe me. So I think that they're all big boys and girls, too. They can hear about it when they're wrong. And that was, I agree, Monday night was horrendous.
It was horrendous. Now, let me go to my games here quickly. I'll run through them. BYU, Kalani Sitake really let me down here this weekend. They didn't show up.
Does this raise questions, too, about who Oregon is?
Yes. What's going on?
They looked very solid.
Yes. And maybe it was, again, new coaching staff, getting the guys to gel. Bo Nix is wildly inconsistent. But in that game, all of a sudden, the Ducks came alive.
Yeah, obviously that wasn't one of my games, but I agreed with you. I thought BYU was going to go in there and not necessarily stomp them, but win.
I thought they were going to welcome in their emergence into the Big 12 with a big season this year and already kind of taking a step back. Quickly, I want to say UTSA, the Road Runners, kind of did what I expected.
Kept it close for the first half, yeah.
But then Texas with the talent and Bijan Robinson took over the game. So, again, not a huge surprise. I picked them to win. And then finally, I mentioned the big comeback in Baltimore, but the Dolphins, man, do they look good.
They do. Tua.
Tua,
looking very good.
Tyreek Hill running all over the place. I mean, not surprising. Not surprising at all. But, again, the Ravens are a good team, so it was a litmus test for what the Dolphins can do.
Yeah, and again, you went 2-1 there. I went 2-1. So here's the records up to this point. Now remember, the loser at the end of football season through the Super Bowl gets a pie in the face. We have
a long way to go.
We let us know. You could tweet us. We're going to be tweeting out. Let us know or send us. You can comment on the YouTube video. What kind of pie do you want to see us get hit with?
Again,
okay.
Is it huckleberry? Is it molasses? Is it
molasses.
apple? Is it pumpkin?
I don't want anything sticky. 14-18, and once again, you're flipping that on its head, 18-14. So good start for you. I would just love to get back to 500. We can do it, hopefully, with this week. So let's talk now, if we can, for a minute about some news and notes this week. We've got some time here. We're going to hit these fairly quickly, though. But I just want to talk about Penn State. And I'm going to kind of tee you up, and then I want you to go off.
Let's hear it. I'm ready.
There was a lot of folks that were giving Penn State a ton of credit nationally. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
Recognizing Nick Singleton nationally. But having said all of that, there's still a camp of people out there that said, hey, it was nice. Penn State went down there. Auburn's not going to be very good this year. Pat yourselves on the back. You got the win. But let's not go crazy here because Auburn kind of stinks. What do you say to that crowd?
What I say to that is the opposite could have happened. Penn State could have went down to Auburn, played down to their opponent if they are bad, and come out on the other side with a loss, which could turn the season on its head. The fact that Penn State went to two away games in the first 3 weeks and come out on the other side 3-0, I expected them to lose one. I didn't know if it was going to be Purdue or Auburn. So already they're playing above my expectations. And I know it's easy to get greedy as fans, but again, you got to take care of business. And if Auburn's bad, tell that to Tank Bigsby.
Well,
all right? Tell that to TJ Finley.
They have athletes on the lines. They may not be national championship competitors, but they have some athletes. And if they are bad, here's what I would say to that. Isn't that what a good team is supposed to do to a bad team?
And I think the Nick Singleton coming out party is huge because everyone thinks the SEC is these big recruits, big talent, big speed. Didn't seem to phase Nick Singleton one way or the other, and it didn't phase the offensive line. They seem to be gelling. They seem to be coming together now. With that said, things are going to get more and more physical as the weeks go by, so the jury is still out. But I like what Franklin's doing. He's keeping the expectations somewhat low, although he went pretty crazy in the locker room, bouncing all around.
But I told you, we discussed this, I thought it was cathartic. Like, they needed this.
After 2 years
of
mediocrity,
mediocrity, which, I'm not one to make excuses. I think I know what happened there. this team was winning 10, 11 games a year just a few years ago. And so I think to get a win like that, it was a complete game, complete performance.
And
he needed that release.
This is the recipe, by the way, because you don't want to totally rely on Sean Clifford.
Right.
You want the surrounding running game to help him out.
Just opens things up.
You don't want to say game manager, but I think
you know who was a game manager? Greg McElroy.
Yeah, that's right.
Won a national title.
And there's a lot to be said when you have that speed that can hit the edge. It's a D coordinator's nightmare. What do you guard against?
Here's a little nugget that I said. Penn State is the only team to play 2 Power 5 road games this year so far in the first 3 games.
Mm-hmm. That's why I feel like we still don't know a whole lot, say, about Michigan, and we'll get into that game coming up.
They played
The
nobody.
scheduling tends to be a little bit weak for some
that's an opening.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Big Ten East.
Well, Michigan State really did a number on themselves. That could change some things. Ohio State still doesn't look the sharpest. And we'll see what happens with that.
Well, they did pretty well against Toledo.
But it was closer than I thought it would be in the first half. And again, they haven't played anybody really. So, as we've learned, Notre Dame is in rough shape. So I still think there's a lot to go on here, but I think it's going to be a tight month here of October to see what happens over the next 6 weeks.
I mean, Rutgers is 3-0.
Yep.
Indiana 3-0.
Tom Allen, baby.
We got the only team in the division with a loss is your Michigan State Spartans. Now, it's not a Big Ten loss.
It's not a Big Ten loss, so
but,
they could come back from it.
Man, I mean, it is one of the toughest divisions as well to play in. We don't know a lot about Michigan yet because they've had a garbage schedule so far. They're really a preseason slate.
They haven't picked a quarterback yet.
They're the opposite of Penn State.
Correct.
They played the easiest 3 games. We played some of the hardest 3 games. Now, speaking of another very tough division, it can be the SEC West, the other tough division. Oof. So when you look at that, Auburn is a very political school.
Yes.
They don't have an AD right now. This is probably the end for Brian Harsin, right?
I think it could be in the next game or 2. I mean, I have their schedule in front of me and looking at things. Okay, they have Missouri next. We'll see.
Can you imagine if they lose that game, though?
Then I think it's over.
I would agree with you. I think it's over if they lose against Missouri.
They have the fighting Brian Kellys coming into town.
They look good.
They do look good. By the way, these 2 games are at home, so Missouri, LSU. Then they go on the road to Georgia. They have no chance in that game. I'm sorry. They have no chance. Georgia looks like an NFL team right now. They follow that up with Ole Miss. Then they take on the Razorbacks, which, by the way, both are in the top 15. Then Mississippi State, which Mike Leach kind of let me down this past weekend. And then Texas A&M. And then they end out with Western Kentucky and then the Iron Bowl. I mean, I don't even see how they finish 500 at this point.
I think we've heard some of the names tossed about. Again, listening to the Feinbaum show the other day, Hugh Freeze.
He comes with his own baggage. How about the guy at Southern Mississippi right now? Or Missouri State, I'm sorry.
Oh, Bobby Petrino.
Yeah. I always get these Southern schools
who vroomed his way right back into Arkansas this past week.
That's what I mean. He's a solid coach. Matt Rule.
Is it over for him in Carolina?
I think it's over.
How about Urban Meyer?
Urban Meyer's another great name.
But I'll tell you who they were talking about yesterday. Prime time.
Every opening is going to bring prime time to the conversation, especially now that Florida State's playing pretty well, because that was the conversation for a while. Would he replace Mike Norvell?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to need to, but could you imagine him? Feinbaum said this yesterday. I agree with it. I don't think Nick Saban is going to lose much sleep if Lane Kiffin gets that job.
No.
Hugh Freeze did beat him twice.
Yes.
But there's some baggage there. I think Saban might keep an eye out if Prime took that job because I'll tell you why. Recruiting.
Yep.
That's the lifeblood of the sport.
It is.
And this guy got the number 1 overall pick to go to
Jackson State.
Yep. So I don't know if it's realistic, but I'll tell you what, Auburn, that would be something that would be wild.
I think they're going to spend a lot of money this time. I didn't understand the Brian Harsin move. I kind of like the guy, actually. He seems like an honest coach.
I do too, but it's a bad fit.
It's a bad fit, and I think maybe a Nebraska job or something of that ilk would fit him better.
You mentioned Georgia. Are they the number 1 team? I mean, are they just head and shoulders above everybody else?
This is the time of the year where I feel like you start to separate and you start to see who's going to lead the pack between them, between Alabama, who's going to touch them? They have so much talent. And
Yeah,
again,
it's hard to say.
It comes down to the lines. Both lines for both teams are strong. Comes down to the playmakers. They have speed on offense.
Well,
good
and
quarterback play.
Stetson Bennett looks good.
So, as much as I would love to see Penn State make a playoff run this year, I'm realistic. They're not going to beat either one of those teams.
So I got to tell you, so my buddy and I, a friend of mine, we always joke that, Stetson Bennett, it sounds like one of these names like from Dallas.
Sure.
Right? Like it sounds like a drama,
yep.
like on ABC, right? Like The Bennetts, all new tonight at 9, and it's about this oil family. And so we just keep joking, the Bennetts are back, season 3, bigger and better than ever. And guess what?
He's bigger and better than ever.
And there's all this drama. This guy could bring home the Heisman potentially this year
yes.
if he continues it. So
yes.
the Bennetts, they're back. Stetson in a big way.
And again, it's one of the rare times where you see a great defense line up with a great offense.
All right, Eagles, you've already kind of hit on them, but I do want to say let's look ahead a little bit at them. How good do you think they can be? And, of course, this is, an overreaction to where we are at.
Well, is it an overreaction, though, to say – the only thing that stopped their offense Monday night was themselves, whether it was the illegal men downfield, whether it was false starts. That's what killed drives for them. It wasn't the play on the field. I think if Jalen Hurts can stay healthy, and he took some hits, which always concerns me, if he can stay healthy and they keep running that RPO at that level, they should be able to beat anybody.
Defense looked good, too.
Yes.
They play the Commanders coming up.
Okay.
Jaguars.
Yep. Doug Peterson.
Yeah, but both of those, they should be. Now they have to travel to Arizona, but
yes,
that
could be tough.
That could be tough, but they don't necessarily look that great. And then the big one, Sunday night football, Cowboys Eagles, October 16th. I think that's where we're really going to learn a lot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the next measuring stick. We mentioned how this Week 2 matchup was going to be a measuring stick. I just don't see another team in the NFC East with that speed and talent at the moment. Now, again, Giants are undefeated. We'll talk about them coming up.
They don't look like they're very complete.
No.
And I'm waiting for, do they have any receivers that can help Daniel George out? Sterling Shepard?
Maybe.
But I think they're too inconsistent.
They played a field goal game against the Panthers, and the Panthers aren't that good.
I like Brian Daboll, though. I do like him.
Yeah.
Another former
He
Nick
might be able to
Saban
motivate.
assistant. Yeah. All right. Here's a question. Biggest surprise so far this season for you in college or the NFL? I just want one nugget.
I think the biggest surprise to me is how quickly Tyreek Hill turned around the Miami Dolphins. Because we were talking at one point about Tua Tagovailoa maybe being out as quarterback in Miami Dolphins. Now, would anybody say that after how they've started over the last 2 weeks? They look explosive. They look dominant at times.
Mm-hmm.
That might be my biggest surprise.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. My biggest surprise. This is a tough one. But I think my biggest surprise would be that some of the teams that we thought looked good in college football don't necessarily look unstoppable.
I would agree with that.
So Alabama, Saban called last year a rebuilding year. They come back loaded this year. They looked like they have some holes in the armor there against Texas. Ohio State looks like they have some issues. And then you've got teams like Kansas.
Where
they
they
look
come
incredible.
from?
You've got teams like Penn State.
Sure.
That look pretty solid. So I think the ebbs and flows of what's going on in the college game maybe give some hope that even before we get to a 12-team playoff, maybe there's hope for one or two teams to get into that top four. Yep. Of course, it's very early yet.
It's very early.
It is very
Upsets
possible.
Happen.
Yeah, it's very possible that it's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson.
Yeah, could be Clemson.
Listen, but I'm just saying that at least early in the year, I'm surprised that more teams haven't looked like Georgia.
I agree.
So
and I still
let's
think
see how
a
that
lot of
plays
it goes
out.
back to the transfer portal. Until teams learn how to navigate this, you can rebuild quickly. The balance of power can shift pretty quickly. I mean, again, look at some of the biggest playmakers for Penn State. They were not with the program last year.
Yep, and they're making a difference. Mitchell Tinsley, one of them, and that goes across the board. Okay, a couple more things here before we get into our games of the week. The Major League Baseball playoffs are looming. There are some teams that just look like they're in the groove right now. The Brewers are looking pretty good, but the Phillies are hanging tight. by a thread.
Oof.
But I'll tell you what,
The
I'm not
collapse
loving.
seems real.
Yeah, I'm not loving what I've seen over the past couple of weeks. The Mets and the Braves are in a tight battle once again, like Penn State and we find ourselves in a very tough division. And then you've got in the wild card the
Yeah, I
Blue
have 'em
Jays.
here.
The Blue Jays, which just beat the Phillies, they're tops along with the
actually,
Rays.
the Blue Jays and the Phillies are similar teams in many ways. Their records are similar. And last night was a offensive explosion, more like a football game. 18 runs put up by the Blue Jays. Every single Phillies pitcher except the backup catcher that came in to throw the last 2 outs gave up runs. I think what you're seeing a lot of, unfortunately, is guys wearing down in the full season now and not having a regular spring training. There's a lot of bad baseball being played currently, and again, it's a very long season, but you have to find a way to avoid the September collapses.
So, again, I'll put you on the spot here. Can the Phillies make the playoffs?
Yes, and you mentioned the Brewers looking better. However, somehow, some way, because they're playing the Mets, I suppose.
Yes.
The Brewers have actually not made up ground on
No,
the Phillies.
they haven't.
It's still a 2.5-game lead for the Phillies.
Yep.
I think they can maintain it. I saw something last night that the Brewers would have to go, I think, 6 or 7 games over 500. The Phillies would have to go 3 or 4 games under 500 the rest of the way for them even to catch each other. So, again, we're getting
about 2 weeks
late in the
left,
season.
right?
2 weeks left. I think 16 games total. I think they hold off. I think they get in the playoffs, and that's all I asked for coming into the season.
Sure.
I think they still have a lot of building to do for next year, including making the rotation a little bit deeper. They're wearing down there. But I like what the Phillies have done all year long, and I just hope the last couple of weeks here don't send them into a spiral.
Well, we want to talk about the weather, too, and again, we're going to do that. But once again, as we look ahead, before we get into the games of the week, the weather looks dead quiet this weekend. There are some games we've kind of, hinted at that, look, that rained at the Packers game.
We feature some stuff.
Last week, there were some showers in Philly for the Eagles game last week. I mean, we pick and choose, but the only thing that's really going to be a big pebble in the pond is if we get a tropical storm. Not that we want that to happen, or a hurricane, but it does look, Dan, as we look at some of the long-range guidance, that late next week, we're talking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, some long-range guidance does show a tropical system. It might be Hermione. Gaston and Fiona are out in the Atlantic now. There's a system that's coming together. It may organize enough that could either affect some of the Gulf Coast states late next week. Miami's on the table for that, and then it does want to push up the East Coast in that Friday, Saturday time frame.
Carolinas, Virginia,
Correct.
Maryland,
so
possibly Pennsylvania.
That could have an effect on some games Friday, Saturday, maybe even into Sunday if it happens. But talk to me about the uncertainty of this all, just for folks listening, because we're seeing the models agree that something could happen.
I think the consensus is something is going to come together out of this tropical wave. Again, it's not named yet. Gaston is a storm that was named last night, but it's a fish storm way out in the Atlantic.
Yeah, not a problem.
But the deviation in the track of this potential tropical storm is the problem. And some models do take it almost due west.
Yeah,
Mexico.
almost to Louisiana.
Yeah, or to Louisiana.
Yeah.
But some also take it pretty far to the north.
Yes.
And if that happens, again, the East Coast could be in the crosshairs here. Florida, as you mentioned.
Right.
But a lot remains uncertain, and it could interact with some of the islands, too, before it even gets to that point. So, again, we don't want to panic anybody.
No, but
there's been so little going on that now finally there's
it's time to at least get our guard up. So
Correct.
That's something we may be talking about right here next week.
Yes.
So we're going to keep you posted on that.
Could affect. I
Could
hate
affect
to say it,
what
Penn
we
State.
do.
It could be a rainy game.
Could be
up
for
in
that
Happy Valley.
Northwestern game, yeah. But and also any game along the East Coast.
Correct.
So we want everybody to be safe. We're going to talk about that. But right now, it's time for
Games of the Week.
Games of the Week.
All right, Brett.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes.
We have Clemson. We have Wake Forest. ACC battle starting to kick off here. This is a game Dabo Swinney needs.
He really does.
Dave Clawson, on the other hand, comes to town, or brings them into town, I should say, and I think he's got a fighter's chance, my friend.
Oh, I do too. And what makes this game interesting is, Dabo still has some questions at the quarterback spot. Can DJ Uyunglele really...
Hey, you did well on that.
Thank you. Really lead them to the type of season that they want. They want to get back to the playoffs, but they have to go to Winston-Salem.
And I think that's the hard part, and there's always an ACC game that is a thorn in Dabo's side.
Yeah.
This could be the one.
This could be the one. Some of the research I did, listen to this. The yards allowed per game for Clemson, 314.7. Mm-hmm. The yards allowed per game by Wake, 314.7. These teams are pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, it's a good even split. Now, again, there may be more talent on the Clemson side based on Dabo's recruiting. But the thing I don't understand about Dabo, he refuses to tap into the transfer portal, and I'm just wondering when that catches up to the program.
Well, if he doesn't start winning again at that elite level, he may have to do it.
Right.
This is where I wanted College Game Day to go this week. Duke at Kansas.
Oh, it's great.
The Blue Devils are coming in undefeated. Lance Leipold has Kansas at 3-0 for the first time since 09 or something like that.
Yeah, the Mangini era, or Mangino. I
Yeah.
always get the Mangino.
Yeah,
mixed up.
they're 3-0 for the first time since 09. They're favored by 7.5 points. Kansas is fun. They've got Jalen Daniels at quarterback. They took Houston, which is supposed to be a pretty good team from the AAC.
Good coach
they
there,
took him behind the
Dana.
woodshed and just gave him a beating.
I think that shows a lot about who they are. I don't think Duke has the same amount of firepower at this time. I think they've kind of worked their way into a 3-0 start, and it's a great story. And Mike Elko's a good coach. He's been at several high-level programs, but I think he needs more time. Lance Leipold has more experience. There's a lot of hype surrounding this program right now. They're excited.
They are. Rock, chalk.
Jayhawk.
Texas Tech. This is a fun game because our old friend Steve Sarkisian, we've done a lot about Texas on this podcast so far this season. They have to go to Texas Tech. Joey McGuire is their head coach, really doing well. But again, kind of a fun setup here. It's the first Big 12 game for both schools. And they each have a loss to a better team, Texas to Alabama and Tech to NC State, which was a fun game. But I think there's a lot of questions surrounding Texas. They're still banged up from that Bama game.
They are still banged up, but they have Bijan Robinson.
They do, but I think I'd like to see some better quarterback play. But again, Joey McGuire, this was a dream job for him, the Red Raiders, longtime high school coach in Texas, now taking over the Red Raiders. And this could be a fun matchup at 3:30. Two more games of the week. What do we have here? These are coming our way now, I believe, Sunday and Monday.
That's correct.
The Bills and the Dolphins. What a fun game this is, especially given the fact, again, both teams look solid.
Look at the over-under on that, 53.
In the AFC East. Yeah,
and
53.
I would take the over on that, my friend, because I think there's going to be a lot of points. It's a kind of a shift in power right now. The Patriots don't seem like a huge threat. These two teams can score it well, and they both play a little bit of defense, especially the Bills.
Can anybody stop the Bills? Are they like the Georgia of the NFL?
Again, I say to my column, only the Bills can stop the Bills, and we'll see what happens.
I like that. Cowboys and Giants, a fun one in the NFC East, and of course, the Giants are undefeated. Cowboys are not, but they put it to the defending champions.
They did.
I was impressed.
The Bengals seem like they're kind of hurting right now. I don't know what's going on there specifically, but either the run from last year wore them out, or they just don't have the talent this year. This game, I think, comes down to the fact that the Cowboys aren't at full strength. Dak Prescott is still hurt with the finger issue. Cooper Rush, does he still have his magic going into this one?
And I really like Brian Daboll. I think he's going to be a good head coach. He's a Nick Saban guy. But again, I think the Giants are inconsistent, so we're going to talk about all of that. The wide picture showing there's Fiona getting and staying east of the United States. But just, again, I mean, there could be a couple of showers here and there, but the weather to me seems quiet. We'll keep an eye on some of the Sunday games in the east as that front wants to come through. You can see it diving out of Canada there, wrapping around into Monday night. But on the whole, we are not seeing any major weather systems
and
at
that's
play.
Not heavy rain. That's mostly just showers.
Showers, yeah. Nothing that we
weather.
anticipate would delay these games this weekend, which is good news. So what does the weather look like? A nice, now we can say an autumn day in Winston-Salem, 77 degrees. How about Lawrence, Kansas? Hot there for Duke and undefeated Kansas. 85 big ones.
85 there, but just wait. Let's zoom down to the south. Low 90s for the Red Raiders of Texas Tech.
But I'll tell you, again, Lubbock, always a fun place to play. The Red Raiders, as Brett Musburger used to say, but they're going to be used to the heat. Everything's bigger in Texas, and they can get it. So when we take you out here through Saturday, these games spread out over the course of the day. We're just not seeing a lot going on.
No.
It is possible Winston-Salem could get some showers, but remember, that game's at noon. I think these games stay dry.
I think so, too.
I think Lawrence and Lubbock are hot, and I think Winston-Salem has a nice fall afternoon. Talk about the wind, because I think one of these games could have some impact with the wind.
Well, and you can see here it's kind of Lubbock and Winston-Salem south of a front, so we're getting a southwest flow. And Lubbock itself gets a little bit breezy leading into the game, and it stays that way through the game itself. And these teams love to air it out.
Yes.
That could have a little bit of an impact. It's not going to be insane wind. This isn't coming off of a Buffalo type of wind blowing through the stadium.
No, but it could be just breezy enough.
It could be breezy just enough. And again, if there is any kicking involved, we always worry about that.
That's when you feed it to Bijan Robinson,
That's right? Just keep it on the ground. Suck that time down.
So there you go. All right, now Miami, of course, this is the one on Sunday that we could see some thunderstorms during the game.
Yes, and again, warm, humid, keep that in mind.
86 degrees, typical Miami weather.
Yeah, pretty typical stuff.
Not to say the game would be delayed, but, I mean, it's possible. Remember, this game's at 1 o'clock. Temperatures again in the 80s, but we're going to get enough influence from the coast here that a couple of rogue thunderstorms may have an impact.
And this may not show. It is. I should say it's showing rain all the time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it is going to rain during the entire course of the game. Probably looking at a broken line of showers and storms. Will be around the area. Again, lightning could be an issue, something we're certainly following in that game. Winds, though, check this out.
Yeah,
coming in
look at
off
this.
the water
Yeah.
At a pretty stiff pace, 10, 11, even 15 miles per hour at
Nice
times.
sea breeze during this game. Could
Yes.
impact the kickers. I'm not sure it'll come down to that, but we will see. It could be a close game. And then this is, of course, the Cowboys-Giants game, East Rutherford, Monday night. I think the showers are going to be exiting.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Timing looks pretty good for this one.
Yeah, but still some clouds hanging around. And again, cooling off next week down to 75 degrees. So as we take you out, again, I think some showers could be around during the day in East Rutherford. But by the time the game rolls around, things kind of dissipate.
I agree. And I think, again, this is typical for this time of the year that it starts to cool off. There could be some clouds and showers to contend with in these matchups. The wind, though, could be more of a factor, and that's something we definitely have to pay attention to. We're watching this change in the air mass across the Northeast, the Great Lakes. I think it's going to be pretty windy here, Brett, come the end of this week and this upcoming weekend at times.
Yeah, we're going to see the breezes blow, especially in the Northeast. So that's something to keep in mind for that game. So we go to our Games of the Week picks now. We're both taking Wake Forest to cover that 7.
I don't like the 7. I don't know why they're a touchdown favorite. I haven't seen enough of the Clemson offense to say for sure they're going to be able to keep up because Wake scores.
Yeah,
That's
they do.
The thing.
Yep. Now, Clemson's defense is very solid.
Yes, very true.
So,
very true.
but that's going to be a fun one. Again, I'll give the slight edge to the home team. I think Clemson can get it done, but I like Wake to cover. These odds, by the way, are from Caesars Sportsbook, valid as of Wednesday, September 21st. Duke, Kansas, again, here, we both think it's a great story.
It's a great story.
But we think Kansas is going to be too much at home.
If it was the other way around, I would give Duke a little bit more of an edge. But again, Kansas is putting up points, it seems like at will.
Yes.
Almost.
How about Texas Tech? Here we differ a little bit, and I'm going to say that I think at some point the Alabama game has to catch up to Texas just in terms of injuries and, playing through the fourth quarter, but you're going to ride your Longhorns.
I'm going to ride the Longhorns. Again, I think Texas Tech is still rebuilding. I would like to see from Texas just a dominating game. They have the best running back in the country. Let's see it happen.
They have to go to Lubbock, though.
They do have to go to Lubbock. However, I don't think Texas Tech has the same talent level yet that is on par with Texas.
Okay, I really want to come up with stuff. We got to come up with a side wager for one of these that we differ on. I don't know if you're as crazy on that. I don't think we disagree totally. That's just a fun one. Ooh, this one might be the game.
I think this is the game.
You're going Dolphins to win it all. The Bills are favored here, and I'm going to pick them to cover it.
I, again, like what's happening down in Miami. Again, speed is the name of the game. And you have Tyreek Hill. You have Tua Tagovailoa. I like the Bills. I just think at some point they get tripped up here in the early going.
Cowboys, Giants, and this is the one we differ on again. I think the Cowboys looked really good. I don't think they need Prescott. They've got the rushing attack. Micah Parsons, Dan.
Sorry. I got to go Giants here. And the only reason why I say that is Saquon looks healthy. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it could be another field goal game going on here.
And we know it's going to be windy there.
And I just feel like, again,
Micah Parsons.
I understand, but I can't get that excited about Cooper Rush. Who is this guy? Was it a flash in the pan for one game? A lot of questions being answered yet.
I don't think they need him. Yeah, we've got our buddy over here. He said take the under, and he might be right, especially if it's windy.
I totally agree.
And neither team looks that great.
And neither team right now can figure out the receiving core, by the way. So it's just something else to keep in mind.
I would agree with that, but I do like the Cowboys. All right, what is it time for?
Under the radar.
The radar.
All right, we've got it. Two games this week under the radar that I felt and you felt they're both college games, but remember, these are games that aren't really being paid attention to.
Correct.
How about Thursday night? ESPN going head-to-head against the NFL game. West Virginia at Virginia Tech, two teams that don't play every year. Tight spread. Could have some weather in this game, which we'll get to.
Could have a little bit of weather.
Yeah.
Neil Brown needs this one badly.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking I like Neil Brown, but he hasn't really done anything.
He hasn't done anything. Virginia Tech, I think, is going to struggle to score in this game. West Virginia can put up points.
We like Brent Pry, but of course that's his first year too. But they've been looking better. So they beat Boston College. Not that I think they're much, but how about this game? P.J. Fleck at Mel Tucker.
This could say a lot about what's going to happen to the East this year.
Minnesota has been absolutely dominant, but they've played nobody.
And who's their offensive coordinator?
Kirk Soraka. But I'll tell you what. I know you have a bad taste in your mouth from when he was at Penn State, but Kirk Soraka and Tanner Morgan together, they make magic.
And Ibrahim as the running back.
These guys have been there for 18 years.
I know. It feels like we're playing the exact same team we lost to in 2019 coming up in October.
So, it doesn't sound sexy on paper, but again, is Mel Tucker going to redeem himself at home, or can P.J. Fleck steamroll him?
It's a very good question, my friend. We're going to find out. But here's the weather you were talking about down toward Blacksburg. Temperatures will be 60s to 70s, but that front timing is not good for the game.
Could have some showers in Blacksburg, and again, I think the winds are going to pick up.
Yes.
Remember, tight spread. Tight.
And weather could easily sway that one way or the other.
Especially with field goals. Then we head into Saturday. There could be a couple of light showers in East Lansing, but I don't think weather is going to be much of a factor. It's going to be cool in East Lansing.
It's going to be much cooler.
But again, Minnesota's used to that. Now, in terms of wind, watch the wind descend on Blacksburg here Thursday night. I think a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind, as you look at some of these high-risk things, could have a big impact.
Yeah, and again, the wind stays elevated here, not only just for Thursday, but into Friday and possibly a little bit into Saturday, too, with these cold air outbreaks coming through from the northwest. Now, actually, interesting enough, East Lansing does see a little bit of a wind shift there, but it's still rather strong. Again, gradients are big this time of the year.
Both games within a field goal spread, too.
Something to definitely consider.
Let's see how we line up on these. I'm going to pick West Virginia to just win it. I think it's a tight enough spread, and you say forget about it. I mean, it's a small spread. I'm just going to take it.
I'm just going to take it. I do think it's going to be a fun game. Fun to have it on a Thursday night.
Yes.
Especially because I don't have to dial into an app to get it. Sorry, I'm still not used to that.
Okay, little dig at Roger there. Minnesota, Michigan State. We both are you suggesting now you regret picking Mel Tucker to win the East?
Well, I don't regret it. However, I do think there's something when it comes to college football. When you get waxed the week before, sometimes that carries over into the following week, and that's my concern against a physical team in Minnesota. Can Michigan State rally? Again, I would love to see Michigan State take on Minnesota and show us exactly what Minnesota's made of. But P.J. Fleck's a darn good coach. I hate to say it. He's a thorn in Penn State's side going back to the first.
He's got a lot of energy. Row that boat.
Yes. And they're rowing it.
We're rowing it, and now we're going to row with our picks here. Time
now for Brett's Best.
And my best this week, not a lot to say here because what I try to do is I just try to find some awful teams and then pick the other team to cover. So Nevada, one of my favorite plays at Air Force, they've got to go there. That's Friday night at 8 o'clock. So they're going to go to the Air Force Academy. And what does Air Force like to do? Whew, they like to fly.
Are we talking 500 yards here?
They like to fly. I don't think Nevada's going to be good. I think Air Force could cover the 24. It's a big number, but Iowa covered the big number against them. Air Force should be able to do it.
I think so, too. Now, you picked the Buffaloes.
The Buffaloes are listen, it's in the column right here. You're going to read it on abc27.com. They may be the worst team in the country.
It's bad.
It's sad.
It's really sad. It's bad. I mean, this was a program that when I was growing up,
they were big.
Consistently in the top 10.
I said I picture the Buffalo and the cart like on the Oregon Trail coming and just tipping over.
It's over, folks.
That's where they're at. Chip Kelly struggled against South Alabama. They needed a late comeback to win. They were down in that game.
And Chip is a guy, too, that I feel like still doesn't have his identity back yet fully.
No, he doesn't. He was one of the hottest coaching names. He's been kind of quiet. They don't have any attendance out there. I've said it before. I think California California has a real problem when it comes to sports and college sports showing up. It is pretty pathetic.
When you see the Rose Bowl mostly empty, it's not a good
It's just sad, and it's become a sad venue, unfortunately. But UCLA can cover this. I think just Colorado is so bad.
Sad state of affairs.
And then lastly, now wait a minute. This is not right. Boston College at Florida State. I am liking Boston College to cover this one.
Interesting.
So I don't know if I did that or you did that or the producer did that.
which the producer's me.
Somebody's getting fired. Boston College at Florida State. That's at 8 p.m. On ACC Network Saturday night.
I can't get that. I cannot get ACC Network. It's one of my biggest complaints against ESPN
I
currently.
get it. I get it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into
we'll
that
have to
a little
check.
bit deeper.
So Boston College seems like a team that's on the wrong track. Florida State seems like a team that's going on the right track. However, they got really banged up last week. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, their quarterback, Jordan Travis, on crutches, right?
Yeah, and they had to go to Louisville. That was a physical game. It's kind of sloppy play. To me, 16. It's 17 and a half now. It was 16 and a half earlier in the week. That's a big number. I like Boston College, so that's going to be Boston College plus 16 and a half.
Okay.
So what do you have, and what is it time for now? It's time for
Oh, it
your
is
picks.
time for...
It's Doppler Dandies.
And I'll tell you what, they really bailed me out this past week because, again, I was getting nervous.
Yes.
My picks were not going well on Saturday. I want to see what Michigan is made of. I don't trust what's going on there with Harbaugh and having two quarterbacks. Again, I go back to the old saying, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I think Maryland keeps this bad boy close. I think Michigan wins, but I think Maryland keeps it close. Iowa, Rutgers, I had to go there.
I thought about that game too.
And the only reason why I say this is I think Iowa wins, but watch out.
So listen, I have a buddy, talk college football all the time, and we play like on Mondays. I'll have a call with him, and we'll play the. What do you think the spread is on this game?
Yeah, sure.
So he said, "Gosh, that's a tough one, right? Because Iowa has to go to Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa maybe -3." And I said, "Would you believe it if I told you Iowa was a touchdown favorite?" And he could not believe.
I don't
that.
know where this is coming from. And again, maybe it's because most of America doesn't watch Rutgers. But
Defense, though, Iowa's stout.
Yes.
Offense.
It may be
great.
the same thing with Rutgers, too. It could be a very similar balance here
Yeah.
with both teams. And then finally, I don't know what's going wrong with the Titans, but I think they start to figure it out this week.
Well, they had to play the Bills.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
that's,
did have to play the Bills.
That's number one.
But the Titans, thank you for A.J. Brown. Thank you very much.
We'll take him.
I'll take him.
Yeah.
But Tennessee, I think, is in a little bit of trouble this season, but I think they end up getting by here this week. So here's a rundown of our picks. I did take the Titans for the money line pick. Rutgers, I also took to cover.
Okay, cue it up because, again,
Final picks.
this is it now. I have got to make up some ground here.
Can you do it?
I hope so. But we're going out on a limb here. We both like Wake Forest. We both like Kansas. That Texas Tech game, we differ. I'm not sold to the pick there. I think we have to make a side bet. And I was thinking about this. I want to make a bet on that Bills-Dolphins game.
All right.
Here's what I want to do. What's Buffalo known for?
They break tables there.
No, but what are they known for?
Cold, snow.
Wings.
Ah.
So I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you. I want to find. We have to find one of those places that do like the suicide.
Yeah,
buffalo.
the hot wings.
Got to eat 6 of them.
Wow.
We
Wow.
will film it,
Okay.
or we'll do it live. We're going to get. That's what I want to bet on this game.
Deal.
Deal.
Let's
Whoever
do it.
loses this game, Buffalo, Miami, we have to get the 6 hot Buffalo.
Could
wings.
this be the game of the weekend for the
I think
NFL?
it could.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we're shaking on this.
Let's do it. I don't know if
Okay.
you could see that between the cameras.
Let me. There. Hot suicide buffalo wings. You know
Done.
the kind we're talking about.
Done.
Cowboys, Giants, we differ on. We
Okay.
both like West Virginia. We both like P.J. Fleck. You're taking Maryland to cover again.
I'm taking Maryland to cover. And only because I think Mike Loxley, they're undefeated too, aren't they?
Yes,
So
3-0.
I want to see, after all these weeks of playing nobodies, if Michigan can come out, kind of a sleepy game, can they come out and actually play up to standard?
On the road, though.
I know.
Okay.
Well, that even makes it worse, in my opinion.
Rutgers,
Okay.
chopping wood.
I think we're really on to something here with Rutgers.
You think so?
And I think that Indiana-Rutgers slate coming up for Penn State, I know everyone's like, that's the easy part of the schedule.
Oh, there's no easy games.
There is no easy game, and I think Rutgers is building something.
And then you said there's issues with the Titans, but you're going to pick them.
I'm going to pick them. I think at some point some talent on the Titans starts to show up.
Yeah.
And, again, how can you go from being so good last year, they have a great running game, to all of a sudden not showing up the last 2 weeks. I think something changes. Again, the NFL tends to be a little inconsistent. I'm going with that.
And the Raiders aren't that great.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got the pie bet stands like this. I'm 14-18. You're 18-14.
Correct.
We've got a friendly wager going on the Bills-Dolphins. Whoever loses that game has to torture themselves by eating 6
suicide wings.
Suicide wings. We're on though. We got to do it. Because we got to keep it interesting.
Do you think we get wing sauce near all this equipment? Think our chief engineer might be a little upset about that?
He'll never know. He'll never know. You think he listens to this? I doubt it.
I sent it to him.
Did you? Okay. Well, he might. But we'll either record it or I'll bring it right here. You and I are both neat people.
Yes.
That's the one thing I could say.
Yeah, I might have to do boneless because again, I used to love bone-in wings, but with the beard, it's a thing.
Oh,
no one needs
you know
to
what?
see.
That's another debate because I hate boneless wings. I think the winner picks the type of wing.
Good call.
Okay.
Good call.
Now, lastly,
Yes,
because
what
we're
we got?
almost out of time here, I just want one bold prediction going forward.
Okay, my bold prediction.
Because that's
is,
what we're in the business of predictions here.
That's very true, and it's part of our job here. So Arizona State has an opening. I know someone who lives in Arizona that has been out of coaching now for a little bit, and it was kind of a weird ending for him. But Rick Neuheisel. I'm a full rider. I listen to Full Ride on Sirius XM. I enjoy him. I think he still knows his X's and O's. I think the man can recruit. He's had some success along the way. Arizona State needs a stabilizer, a fixer. Rick Neuheisel for the new head coach of Arizona State.
That is pretty bold. Bold prediction. I am going to say that based on what I saw Monday night, the Eagles will win the NFC East.
Wow.
And I understand that may not be a bold prediction. Some talking heads and national
I picked
folks,
them last year, by the way.
have said that this is a thing. But for me to do it this early in the year is bold, believe me, because I still think they could collapse. I'm still not convinced the Phillies are going to make the playoffs.
And again, so much happens during a football season.
Yeah,
Can
you don't
A.J.
know about
Brown
injuries.
Stay healthy.
Right.
Can Jalen Hurts stay healthy?
Yeah.
Most of these teams are one major injury away from changing the course of the season, a la Penn State last year. So, again, it's bold. I like it. My other bold prediction here is I think Drew Aller burns his red shirt this year for Penn State, and I do think he ends up playing meaningful time because of a Clifford injury.
Well, that could be, but we may not even need him to get injured. We may just need him to throw
Correct.
defenses off.
Correct. And, again, maybe in some of these bigger matchups down the road, we end up seeing him anyway.
I love it. Listen, it's going to be fun. This wing bet has certainly made it interesting. I can't wait for next week as we talk about that. We may have some tropical weather to talk about, too.
Indeed.
So, again, you can find us here wherever you find your podcasts online. Remember, our column gets posted as soon as we're done recording this at abc27.com, along with our full video. You can also go to the ABC27 News YouTube page. We're going to be on there as well. But
we'll share
Apple,
out the links.
Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube. You just search weather wagers. It's
and like
that
and
easy.
subscribe. I think we're up to now a dozen or so subscribers on the podcast platform. So
Yeah.
we really do appreciate you listening. Hopefully you're having a little fun along with us. We enjoy putting this together each and every week.
It's great, and it's we just want you to stick with us. Next week, you got to check in to see that wing bet. Throw up that graphic one more time. Play us off, Dan. Final thought here on the Wager Show.
All right, my final thought is simply let's keep the good vibes going. Let's see Penn State throttle Central Michigan. Let's see the Eagles throttle the Commanders.
Let's do it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you back here next week.